Hey y'all, today I am going to be talking to you about one of my favorite tools in my toolbox, one of my favorite subjects. Baby Key, my cat, loves to be in the video. The Enneagram. So for some of you, you know the Enneagram. For some of you who don't, for those of you that don't, the Enneagram is less a personality assessment and more a path back to divine essence. It's based on sacred geometry, modern psychology, and spirituality. And it's non-denominational. So why is the Enneagram important? The Enneagram is important because it literally tells you why you're here, who you are, and what is your purpose. So we each have divinely given gifts. And I believe the Enneagram, knowing our type, helps us to know what gifts we have and what gifts we're being called to contribute to our community in this one wild and precious life. What is also super cool about the Enneagram is it's super applicable. There we go. And once you know your type, you can use it. You can use your type as an internal GPS system to compassionately course correct. So all of us have divinely given gifts and all of us self-sabotage. The Enneagram shows us what are our gifts, how can we focus on building our strengths, and also how we individually trip ourselves up. Where are we self-sabotaging? And the Enneagram shows us embodiment practices, applicable practices you can do on a daily basis that will help you course correct, will help you come out of the ditch and get back onto the road. So whereas astrology is more of an external GPS system, there's lots of, Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, all of these external things. To me, the Enneagram is more of an internal GPS system that shows us how we can redirect our lives back to wholeness, how we can create a healthy relationship with ourselves. And when we're right, good, and true with ourselves, we can be right, good, and true and have healthy relationships with others. So I believe the Enneagram is so accurate and eerily profound, eerily accurate, because you can't just enter in your birthday, where you were born, and the time you were born. And don't get me wrong, I have such reverence and respect for astrology and human design and all of the things. And those are not my field of expertise. My field of expertise, I told you guys, Baby Key, he loves to be the center of attention. My field of expertise is in the Enneagram. So I think it's so profound and so accurate because it's for those who truly want to commit to the process of self-understanding and evolution and growth and lovingly catching ourselves in the ditch, right? Lovingly looking at our warts and all, right? This work is not for the faint of heart. It's not. And it's so fucking worth it. So there is a test, and I say, fuck the test. And I'll tell you why. The ego hates two things. It hates waiting and it hates the unknown. So it especially hates waiting in the unknown. However, many people don't understand that yes, waiting in the unknown may be the least favorite carnival ride at the fair, but it harbors the most prizes. So if you don't know your type, I invite you not to take the test. I invite you to maybe watch these videos, read about all the types, and or work with a trained Enneagram professional, because these ways we are more likely to be able to lovingly see the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. So for instance, I am an 8 on the Enneagram. And when I first found out I was an 8, which is called the Challenger, I like to use the numbers versus the names because they're more neutral, and people will try to type themselves with the names, and it's just like a little grain of sand behind the, oceans and shores of sands. But when I found out I was an 8 and that 8s deal with anger and can have rage, I was like, oh, fuck no. I'm not an 8. I was already challenging. I was challenging my type. I don't have anger. Oh, not me. And then soon after I found out my type, I was on the highway driving down, someone cuts me off, and I went into a full-blown road rage, honking my horn, giving the middle finger, and then I stopped. Oh my gosh, I really do have anger. But the juice of the Enneagram isn't, oh, I have anger and I'm an 8, so I'm entitled to my anger. It's what is behind the anger? What is the anger really about? And that's where the self-inquiry work and the embodiment practices come in, which once again, it's not for the faint of heart, but one of the reasons why the Enneagram is my favorite tool is because it literally saved and changed my life. So I used to use the test a lot when I was doing Enneagram for professional development. And I found that about 50% of the people would test wrong. After they heard the presentation and we went deep into the Enneagram, they realized, oh, that's not my type. And so that's why I say don't take the test, because we have judgments about how we really are. So people never really take the test totally honestly. So our answers are usually skewed to ignore what we judge about ourselves. So I challenge you to wait in the unknown during this process, especially if you don't know your type, or maybe you're in between types, or maybe you just be non-attached to your type, because it's actually not about me being an 8. That's not the goal of the Enneagram, to find out your type. The goal of the Enneagram is actually to be a balance of all 9 types. So let's jump into it. Intro to the Enneagram. This is just a scratching of the surface of how deep the Enneagram is. So many of you know that there's 9 numbers. They're all created equal. And what many people do not know is there's 108 variations of those 9 numbers. We're going to get into that later. But back to the sacred geometry piece, 9 numbers, 108 variations, 9, 108, 1 plus 8 equals 9. So for you mathematicians in the room, there's a lot of sacred geometry fun in here. So whenever I teach the Enneagram, I always start with the intelligence centers. So in the Enneagram, there's a fractal of triads, which means there's endless groupings of 3. And the first grouping of 3 I'd like to talk to you about is the intelligence centers. And the intelligence centers are the way we perceive the world, like the lenses we're wearing, how we relate to the world, how we perceive the world. So if you look at a symbol, I didn't bring one here, but Google Enneagram symbol online, and you're going to see that the top numbers at the top, that doesn't mean they're the best, are 8, 9, and 1. So at the top of the Enneagram symbol is 8, 9, and 1, and those numbers are the body center. And the body center perceives the world through their body and instinctual intuition. The emotion the body is most challenged by is anger. Yes, you guessed it. So 8s externalize their anger. They blow and go. 3 minutes later, they're like, oh, I'm fine. And then 9s tend to suppress their anger or become passive aggressive. 1s demonstrate a more controlled anger, or you can imagine like a volcano just erupting a little bit and then, oh no, pulling that anger back. So what they're really avoiding, these 3 types, they're going to anger because they're really avoiding the fear of being vulnerable. So the main desires of the body types, 8, 9, and 1, are independence, autonomy, and respect. That's what they want the most. Independence, autonomy, and respect. Because the body center tends to overuse their body, they're busy bunnies. Do. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? So the contemplative prayer practice that brings 8, 9, and 1 back into integration is stillness, to not do anything at all. So many stillness practices, Shavasana. In the summer, I love to lay out in my lounge chair and just be a lizard basking in the sun. There's many other ways, meditation, just staring off at the birds, listening to the birds. So the next center, Heart center. And let me pause right there. You're probably not going to be able to type yourself. So from this video, because I know that's where people's minds go. But I promise you, if you commit to this process and you lovingly look at yourself with warts and all, you will eventually find your type. And the journey of staying in the curiosity, waiting in the unknown, will offer you so much more richness than a test could ever offer you. So next center is the heart, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going clockwise on the Enneagram symbol. And this center perceives the world through their heart, through their emotions. The emotion that the heart center is most challenged by is shame. And they're challenged by this shame because they have fear that they are unworthy to experience and express their needs, which is obviously a lie. So 2s become lovable, helpful, and do acts of service. 3s portray whatever role goes over publicly in the spirit of achieving. 4s focus on being someone special and authentic especially to themselves. So the main desires of the heart center, 2, 3, and 4, are attention, validation, and worthiness. So because the heart center tends to overuse their heart or their emotions in how others perceive them, the contemplative prayer practice that brings them back into alignment is solitude. So they can be good with themselves and they can be good with their higher power. Next, and last but not least, the third intelligence center, how we perceive the world, is the head center or the thinking center, 5, 6, and 7. So this center perceives the world through their head, through their minds and their clairvoyant intuition. They can only receive that clairvoyant intuition when their mind is still. Just like all of the others, the body center can only receive that Gnostic knowing, that clairsentience, when they're still, when they're home in their bodies. The heart center can only get that heart intuition, that emotional intuition, when they're equanimous in their emotions. So back to the head center. The emotion that the thinking center is most challenged by is fear and anxiety. 5s try to master it by gaining more knowledge through research. 6s stay alert, make contingency plans, and connect with groups for security. And 7s deny and avoid pain through fun and adventure and fantasy so that they can feel free. So to avoid this anxiety and or fear as head people, the head people may be the most afraid of their own pain. So as Carl Jung said, whatever we resist persists. So another medicine for 5, 6, and 7 is to go into their pain, to Gnostically experience, not just think about it, which we can all relate. You don't have to be a head type to overthink. I certainly overthink, and I'm not a head type. So the main desires of the thinking center are safety, stability, support, and guidance. And because the thinking center tends to overuse their mind, their thinking, the contemplative prayer practice that brings them most into integration is silence. Silence. So we actually need all 3 of these: stillness, solitude, and silence. But there's one that's extra special for our type to bring us back into alignment. So we haven't gotten to the embodiment practices because we haven't gotten to the types. But an embodiment practice, like if you already know your type, or maybe you're really resistant, like I was, to practice stillness, or you're really resistant to spend time with yourself, or you're really resistant to having quiet, that's an embodiment practice right there. So a lot of these practices aren't fun. It's like, oh God, I don't want to do that. But I will tell you, as someone who practices stillness more after knowing the Enneagram for 11, 12 years, it's like I resist it. And then the second I do it, it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that sooner? This is so nice. Whatever we resist persists. And then when we go into it, that's what brings us back into alignment. So as these videos go on, we're going to go deeper into the Enneagram. Remember, this was just a scratching of the surface. But I want to leave you with one thing. Even though you may not know your type, I want you to go forward and be curious about what motivates you. What are your basic desires? And what are your basic fears? Because many types, the 8 is known to be strong, but many types other than the 8 are strong. So it's not about the idiosyncrasies or the characteristics of the types. It's about what motivates the type, that differentiates the type. And the more you can think about this, especially if you really want to learn the Enneagram, maybe you're a coach or a therapist, or you're going to use this in your business, then I want you to think about what is motivating me and what is motivating my loved one, or what is motivating them. Instead of trying to type everybody and rush to figure out your type, can you slowly, compassionately, curiously observe? Thank you so much for tuning in with me and the Enneagram. My name is Barrett Freibert. If you want to learn more about what I do or the Enneagram, you can visit my website at www.barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T-T, Freibert, Freibert.com. I can't wait to dive deeper into the Enneagram with you and make it a great day.